was nice enough to come on to talk a little bit about her experience in the program, because I know that this is a little bit of a different system. It's a little bit hard to understand, a little bit different from what a lot of people do, and a little hard for me to explain and come across and make a lot of clear, distinct sense about it, because it is so different than from what everyone else does. So I like to hold these sort of informal interviews in places where you can ask questions of someone who's already been through it, someone who's had some success, and get some feedback from them as opposed to just hearing from me. So that's why Lauren is here tonight. So thank you for that, Lauren. I'm just real quick going to run through an overview of the program for you, so you have a basic structure and a basic idea, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, let her give her story. And then if you guys want to ask questions of either one of us, then that is obviously available to you. So just a brief overview of what the program is. This program, let's back it up. When I decided to run the 33 days program, when I invented or created it, was back in March of this year. And I had a bunch of students reach out to me who had not passed the PANCE, more than usual. Usually I get a couple a week who reach out to me and say, hey, what do I do now? I was getting a much more of those coming in. And I was trying to decide what to do. I obviously can't tutor everybody one-on-one, as much as that sounds great. I also know that me tutoring somebody one-on-one is only going to be so helpful. We can't just sit and go over content together. I don't think that's going to move the needle for people very much. So I struggled with how I would help those people, what I would do. It also would take up a ton of your time and a ton of my time. So I didn't think it would make a lot of sense from any standpoint. So what I came up with was, the question I asked was, how could I best help a group of people get through this thing? And what I came down to was, I've always believed that 99% of people who graduate from a PA program have enough medical content to pass the test. The problem tends to be, or one of the problems is, they don't understand the way the game is played. They have trouble with the game of the PANCE. And that's something that a system that I like to help with, that I think is tremendously valuable to get you through this particular exam. So that's where I started out with. And what I came up with was, excuse me, going back through the physician assistant exam scholars newsletter, all the things I had written, all the things I'd researched, all the things I'd gone through, and pulled out 33 lessons on getting through this exam, getting through PA school, learning a few better, for lack of a better way of saying it, different study techniques, different test taking techniques, different approaches, and different strategies for moving through the material, for retaining the material, for answering questions, for understanding questions, and for putting you in the best possible position to pass this exam. So the way that the program, the basics of how it runs is, I set up, well, first of all, we have the group who's already pretty active within the September cohort. I actually have a bunch of people in there already who are surprisingly eager to get started. So we have, excuse me. So we have the group dynamic, which is incredibly helpful. You have a bunch of people working toward a common goal, which provides accountability and provides a little boost kind of when you need it, that there are other people working with you, working alongside you. Now, when I say working with you, working alongside you, this program is not a content-based program. The design is, like I said, in my mind, you probably have enough content to pass this thing. You probably also have a ton of study materials already. So what I do, my goal was to stay out of your way, but to help facilitate and structure your studying. So I set up a 33-day schedule for you to go through the material. Largely, you're going through the material on your own. You're studying how is best fits for you. Everybody inside of this is in a different place. Some people are still in school. Some people are finishing up school. Some people have been out of school for a year. Some people are taking their PAN rate. So there's a lot of different situations going on. So what I wanted was to set this up in a way that everybody could kind of do their own thing, but still have it be everyone working together. So, so I set the schedule, the pace, for example, or there's a better way to say it, the pace of the content that you're going through, but you go through the content. Then what happens is every day I release to you a new lesson. One of the lessons I teach every single day, and I go through, like I said, in the beginning, we talk about staying out of the weeds, how to not get too caught up in too much detail, and where to draw those lines, because I know that's a big problem people have. We talk about a few different study techniques like spaced repetition, association, those sort of things, and get people to sort of start incorporating those a little more clearly so they can understand. We go through things like question breakdowns, exactly the anatomy of questions, exactly how I would walk through questions, how to look at answer choices, how to eliminate answer choices, what to do when you're stuck and can't decide what to do when you are someone who goes too slowly through a test. But what I found by doing this course is that a lot of people also go too quickly through tests. And I also have a few strategies for how to handle that and to slow you down and get you to your right answers. So those will be what we do on every single morning for the 33 days. And there's a whole lot more to that. But essentially, that's the basics. On top of that, we also do a weekly coaching call. So we all get together like this and go over anything basically that you have questions on, but I'll review the things in those lessons and review what places anyone gets stuck or is having trouble implementing something or having trouble understanding something, because the whole thing is a layered process. It starts out on day one kind of slow and then builds and builds and builds and builds. I had a student on, actually not a student, a PAC on as of a couple of days ago, last night. And that's what he talked about. He talked about it being a tool belt that you add tools to over the 33 days, so that when you get to your exam, you have a bunch of tools you could use on test day that make you feel much more comfortable and much more prepared than only what you used to bring to the exam. And that was the analogy he used, and I really like that. So we do the weekly coaching call to make sure you're implementing everything and going through everything. Again, I'm not necessarily teaching content in that coaching call. I'm happy to go over some things with people, and some people will ask those questions, but that's not really what it's for. Now, we do provide content, medical content. If you feel like you need more than you already have, like I said, I think most people have too many resources. And that's another thing I'll talk about inside, is jumping between resources starts to get a little anxiety ridden. But I do provide for you one of the reasons I didn't do a recorded or live lectures on medical content is I realized I've gone through the blueprint twice now in the podcast, and that's exactly what I would be doing if I were to go through the material again. So I decided it didn't make a lot of sense for me to re-record everything and go back through it again when that's already provided to you 100% for free. In addition to that, I have a book coming out, which you may or may not have heard of, Wallace's Notebook, which is all of the notes from the website. You'll get the digital version of that. So there is a lot of content that I do provide for you. It will be there if you feel like you need something in addition to what you have. But the focus here is to build that toolbox and to get you through the material and to build you into the best possible version of yourself as you approach that exam. And that's really, really my goal, is to put you in the best position to beat this thing, whether it's your first attempt or after that. I also have a whole bunch of people who have gone through, who have done really well on their end of rotations exams, exit exams, all kinds of things, because that toolbox is transferable, right, to a lot of different areas. So although they may be in a different situation, that's certainly something that they can take with them. So that's the brief overview. Like I said, I didn't want to make that take too long. And now what I'd like to do is just turn it over to Lauren for a minute. And for those of you guys who came on late, first of all, I'd love it if you put your cameras on. That's certainly helpful for everybody here to feel like we're talking to people and not just blank screens. Is definitely helpful. But I asked Lauren to come on because she's someone who's been through the program, has done incredibly well with it. And I know it's helpful for you guys to get a clearer picture of what I'm doing, why it works, how it's helpful from someone who's been through it before. So Lauren, if you go ahead and tell your story, or introduce yourself and tell your story, we'd love to hear it.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So I graduated last year, so July of 2021, and I took my first attempt in September 21st, and I did not pass. And I just did the normal like studying. I followed the blueprint, used Rosh Review, studied as hard as I possibly could, and got a 320. So I went back and tried to just kind of process everything. I definitely looked at the printout that they give you once you get your score. They tell you what questions you missed and kind of like what areas you need to work on. So definitely focused on that a lot. Actually hired like just a personal tutor, which like Brian has said, all we did was go over content. It wasn't really, I don't think it was truly that helpful. She would quiz me on questions, but again, I took the test then in February of this year, and I failed, and I actually got a lower score that time than I did the first time. I got a 315, so about 5 points less than I did the first time. So then I was really stuck because I was like, there's no more medical content I feel like I could learn. I did every Roche review question they had in the question bank multiple times. Like I think I went through it twice. I did another question bank. I can't remember what it's called. And I just did a ton of questions. I did practice tests. Like I would do 300 question tests, and it just didn't seem to help any. And this was at the point where I just like felt like I needed to do something different. I was listening to Brian's podcast and I heard him talking about the 33 days to pass the PANCE. So I decided to listen to that podcast and understand that he's definitely going with a different approach. And so I was like, I mean, I have nothing else to lose. So I signed up for the June cohort. I did that for a month. Now I just took my test at the beginning of August. So when you do the cohort, Brian does make a schedule for you, and it's like every couple of days you're switching like topics. Like you'll go from, pulmonary to cardio every couple of days. I kind of spread it out a little bit more because I knew I had more time than just the month. So I just spread out my, studying a little bit more, but I did follow, his schedule. I listened to the daily lessons every morning. I did, the 30 minutes of exercise. I drank the water that, he recommends. I did the gratitude, and, everything kind of sounds a little silly, and it sounds like stuff that you feel like you already know or that you should know. But you have to, for me, it was all about the confidence. So I took my test in August 17th, and I just found out I passed yesterday. So I passed with a 434. So I got like 119 more points after doing this course. And I truly think it was just, it wasn't content. It wasn't the medical content that I didn't know. It was the confidence. It was trusting yourself. It was knowing that you have it inside of you. You just have to believe it. And also like the test taking tips that he gives throughout the course also I thought were really beneficial. So it was totally, looking at it completely different. Going in there, I wasn't nervous at all, which is shocking because I'm a nervous person sometimes. So I feel like just walking into that test, and if you've done it before, or, even taking just an exam in school, how nerve-wracking it is. And I walked in like super confident, and I didn't have, I wasn't sitting there waiting for them to call my name. I wasn't flipping through flashcards like I was before, like as if I was going to get any more information into my brain. I was sitting there just, totally confident in myself. And I was like, I know what I know, and I'm going to just show them what I got, and I'm going to prove to everybody that I can do this. So, I mean, it was totally just a mental change. You have to believe that you can do it. And this course helps you do that. I honestly do not think I would have passed without taking this course. I think that was 100% the game changer for me.
And thank you for sharing, Lauren. One of the things I want to point out to you guys is she went up 119 points. I mean, that's insanity. And again, she has outsized results. I don't want to pretend like everybody goes up that high. Certainly not. I do have some people who do. But that's where I kind of push on the point of the content. Everybody wants to learn more content, learn more content, learn more content. You don't jump 120 points by learning that a little bit more content over a 2-month period. You've been in school for 2 years, 3 years in some of our cases. There is a point to getting the content in, and I'm a big fan, and I support that strongly, right? It's definitely 60, 70% of what you have to do. My feeling, though, very strongly, as you heard Lauren say, is there's another 20 to 30% that we can tweak in kind of a short period of time and really get scores to move quite a lot. But part of that is, and you'll hear her have said this, is if you do decide to go ahead and join the 33 days program, buying into it and doing the things I ask is extremely important. You will feel kind of silly at the beginning, and you'll be like, I know how to do this. Why are we doing this? This is stupid. And if you've listened to some of the other interviews people have done and the other conversations people have had like this in the app, and I posted the link in the chat if you want to check those out. If you haven't, they say very similar things. They say, you know what? I kind of thought it was dumb and silly until I got started. And honestly, until I reached the end of the 33 days and I sat down for my exam. And I've heard from more people than I can count I felt so calm on test day. I was actually surprised that I didn't have the sweaty palms, that I didn't have the intrusive thoughts, that I didn't have all those things that slowed me down in the past. And that to me was one of the most surprising things to come out of doing this, is those responses from people before they got their results, who reached out to me to say, hey, I don't care if I passed or not, but thank you for doing this, because I felt so much better. I felt so much more in control. And that seems to be a very constant theme. And that's really one of the things I'm shooting for, because again, I feel like if you can get the information that's already in your brain out into the world, you can probably do pretty well on this thing. But it's that transition for people that tends to be a little bit difficult. And you can hear it, like I said, in Lauren's story, is not alone. And one of the things she mentioned also is just the difference in taking the PANCE compared to anything else that you've done. It's a big jump, right? It's not really the same. It's a much more stressful situation. So without that practice, without something to push you into a little bit better mental state, it can be a big struggle for a lot of people, especially when they get hit hard with a run of questions that they don't understand or they don't know. And that happens, right? There's no way to get through the 300 questions without hitting a row of questions you don't know. It's going to happen. So having a plan to deal with that, that's one of the things we talk about, and having a plan to rebuild yourself when you get into one of those runs and when you get down, so that you can keep going and continue to show what you know and what you understand and what you're capable of on that exam. That was fantastic, Lauren. Thank you very much. And I'm so excited that you passed this thing. You must be totally thrilled.
Yeah, it really hasn't like sunk in yet. Like I said to my husband, because I didn't have to work today and I didn't have to study. So it's like, I had so much anxiety. I was like, I should be studying. And he's like, no, you don't need to anymore.
It's almost hard to stop, especially because you've been doing it longer than most people.
Yeah, it took me a year. I mean, it's been almost a year since I took it the first time. So it's been about a year, but it doesn't matter now because I passed.
Well, congratulations. All right. So I just was going to go ahead and open the floor up to anybody who has questions, either for Lauren or for myself, on things that aren't clear, things they wanted to know about, things that didn't make sense, things that are holding you up, or anything else.
So is this program kind of set up like your the app that came with the final step to, like your Learnistic app with all
the content's delivered through a couple of different methods. One is the group is within a whole new piece of software that you guys it's going to have to be new. That's one of the reasons why I closed down registration on the 27th and not on the last day of the month, because I need a day or two to get everybody into the system, and into Learnistic is also part of it. And for most people, that's really easy, but for one or two people, it becomes a headache, and I don't want anyone to be behind when we start. And that kind of happened to me in both the April and June cohorts, where people didn't get into that software for a couple of days, and then they feel like they're rushed, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm closing it down a little bit early. Yes, what I do is, again, so the daily structure is every morning at about 8 a.m., I release a new lesson. And that is going to be within the group construct, which is the easiest way to describe it is it's like a private Facebook group, but in a more enclosed setting. So it's a much less distracting setting. And then that lesson, the video part of that, the video audio part of that is posted within Learnistic. Yes. So that comes up in there inside the app every day. So you can listen to that on the go. You can listen to that, you can watch that wherever you are. And it's really easy from that standpoint. I really wanted to not be intrusive with this course. And I know that sounds funny, but the 33 days is a long time, right? The reason I built it over 33 days is because the things I teach, the tools I'm going to go through with you, take time to learn and implement. It's not something I can hand to you today and you can take into the test tomorrow. As Lauren was saying, there are things I ask you to do every single day for the 33 days. And part of that is to build over time, right? You can't build that foundation in one day. It takes us some time. That being said, I don't want to interfere necessarily with your schedule and your timing. I know a lot of people are working. A lot of people are still in school. Some people are devoting their entire day for a month to this, but not everybody is. And I understand that. I didn't want it to take up a chunk of your day. So there's never a time when you need to show up at a specific time during this course. I built it that way on purpose for you, and honestly for me a little bit. I thought it easiest if you could do it whenever you chose to. So the lessons go up at 8 a.m. You can watch them or listen to them whenever. It's really easy to do them on the run because they're in the app. So if you have that, you know how easy that is to listen to in your car or out for a walk or doing whatever you do. The downside to that is there are a couple lessons in there that you're going to want to go through maybe more than once or a little bit more slowly. Some of it you can do are shorter and you can do them quicker, and some you're going to want to listen to 2 or 3 times. So you're going to have to balance that as you go. But those will always be in there and available to you. And then, like I said, so that's one of the reasons that also the weekly coaching calls, I do strongly recommend that you show up at those times because it's great to have the conversation and to pass information back and forth. And I think we've gotten a lot out of that. But if you can't make the times, those are always recorded and then posted inside the app as well, so that you can always follow along and listen in on those after the fact so that you don't miss out. Elam was on yesterday, and he talked a lot about doing it that way because he's in Alaska. So he's way behind on time frames. So he had trouble matching up with the times, and that wouldn't have worked for him if we had anything that was specific. And that's one of the reasons why I did it. You know, he also talked a little bit about inside the group, there are different, members who have decided to form their own little study groups, right? So people have gotten together on the side and studied together. And that's been really good for some people. He was talking about how he really still couldn't do that because doing his kid's schedule and the timeframes wouldn't work for him. So the goal is to have everything available to you, but nothing that you have to show up at a specific time for, so that you can build it around your day. That being said, there is a structure to the course and it moves at a fairly good clip. And part of that is, and again, it's not a 5-day cram course. I'm not moving quite that fast, but it moves right along. And part of that is to keep the motivation up and to keep you moving in a direction towards your goal. You know, I find a lot of people are struggling once they get out of school and don't have that support system, that framework to work in, and they can get kind of depressed or lonely and get sort of out of sync and not sure, or say, you know what, I'm going to take today off, or, oh, I'm going to study 50 hours tomorrow, or this or that. The way that I have it set up pushes you right along through the system so that accountability factor keeps you moving in that sense. So yes, a lot of it is learnistic based to get you the videos as conveniently as possible, but there's also a couple other aspects to it. That was a really long answer to a straightforward question. No, that was my fault.
And the other question that I had, after the one in September, will you be doing one in November?
I've decided I'm not going to be able to do one in November. No, it's not. Okay. The next one will not be until 2023. Likely March or April is when it's going to be. But I haven't set the calendar.
Because my graduation is May, so I plan to sit in May.
Okay.
I'm starting early because I struggle with tests bad. I took the GRE twice just to get two points higher than the last one. So
well, so then I would give you
early enough.
I would give you 2 answers to this question because, like I said, there's a lot of people in a lot of different situations, and maybe Lauren can chime in on this as well because she's got a different view than I do. There's a lot of people in different situations who have gone through this program, right? So a lot of people in your shoes, less in your shoes, but definitely some who are still in school, still trying to work through, who have said, you know what, I've struggled on a couple EORs, I've done well, but here and there, I'm not as happy as I'd like to be, and then have joined for basically to get not necessarily the content schedule and the push through to the PANCE, some of that a little bit, but more the daily lessons. And I found that they've done really well with that, and I've been pretty pleased with that. That being said, if you wait until May, or until the February-March cohort, you would get more from the group pushing toward the PANCE itself, right? Okay. So that would be a more dynamic group for you. Although the group here would be very helpful, you're just on a little bit different time frame. And the whole thing would, like I said, I've had people ask me about, just releasing the lessons separately, just doing things like a home study course. And I've really decided not to, because I want the pace and I want you to be a daily situation. And maybe Lauren can talk to this also a little bit. It wouldn't work if I handed you the lessons. It just wouldn't be the same, even someone in your situation. So I really can't do that. Not because I don't want to, but because it wouldn't help you. It wouldn't work. And I don't want to put you or me in a position to give you something that's not going to be helpful.
Oh, no.
So it's a little bit of a tough position that you're in, because you could do both ways. The other thing you'll find is I have a bunch of people in not obviously the first cohort, but in the second and now the third cohort, a bunch of people who are going through the program a second time because their test was 2 months out or 3 months out, and they got a ton out of it and said, you know what, let's do this again. So you maybe find yourself in that position as well.
Yeah, I have
Lauren?
general surgery next month, and I have to drive 2 hours away in the morning. So leaving at 4:30 and not getting home till late, I didn't think I could do the September cohort.
That may be difficult. Lauren, if you could talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, I really, just from my own personal experience, like that mine was in June and I took my test in July because I really just kind of strived off like the motivation aspect and like the just motivational like stories and research that's been done and stuff that Brian talks about throughout the whole thing. It really kind of drove me to keep focused and stay motivated. And like I even messaged Brian because at one point you're not going to have access to the videos anymore. So I messaged him and asked him to keep them up longer because I wanted to just listen to him like the day before my test, because like just the things that he says, you just need to keep repeating in your head to yourself. So personally, I would not recommend doing it too early before your test. I would wait like maybe the month or two before your test, just so that you had that like motivational push from the group, because you have people in the group with you cheering you on. You have all these like good, important things that Brian says that motivate you. So you want to have that kind of attitude when you're walking into the test that day, because it's all about your mental state at that point.
Yeah, the hit or miss there is I like the idea of having more time to practice the stuff that I teach. I'm actually toying with ideas of how I can help students at an earlier date than just a month before their test, because I feel like that's so late. You don't have time to practice or use the things that I'm talking about. On the other hand, I totally agree with Lauren that you do get this momentum push from being with the group and going through it. So I think that's really helpful. So I could see, both ways. Like I said, it's a little bit of a tough decision.
Mm-hmm.
My fear is you're not going to have enough seats like when it comes around, because that's when a lot of programs are graduating. So like, I don't want to not do it this coming month.
I wouldn't be too worried about it. Let's put it that way. I won't, Andrea, I won't turn you away. If you show up in March or April, you email me and say, listen, I was on the call. How much
anxiety I have.
I can see. So you're not alone, by the way, just in general. But seriously, I mean, if that is your concern, 100%, even if it was closed, email me and say, listen, I was on the call. You told me I'd have a spot. Don't let that be an issue. Certainly not.
I just had a quick question. My name's Kipley.
Hello.
Hi. I have a bit of an unusual circumstance, but I am taking the boards for the 7th time.
Wow, that is unusual.
Yeah. So I was granted, one of them was invalidated because of COVID reasons. The testing center literally there was a lot of security breaches like with the testing center. So they invalidated test number 5. So they gave me one more. I ran up against the 6-year time slot. So they gave me one. I just found out yesterday they gave me one more chance. And
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So I have until December 5th to take it. But I'm just wondering, I feel like I've exhausted all of my resources. So for me, it's more of content at this point because—
Wait, until September 5th, did you say?
Oh, December 5th.
December. I thought you said September. And I was like, wait a minute, this is going to be a lot more intensive conversation. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it too long-winded for everybody else. I just want to mention that I feel like I'm up against content as well as everything else you talked about, only because I'm 6 years plus out of school. I didn't initially have the pre-med background, and my program I went through was only 3 months of didactic. So it was extremely accelerated and self-taught completely. And then I went working for the last 4 years in research. So
wow.
Yeah. So I'm kind of back to the drawing board, essentially. Even though I took my last try in April, I did not get that close, though. I was like a 270.
Okay, then that is a little ways to go. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess I just kind of wanted to open it up to see. I mean, I'm so curious. I would love to do your program. So I just
the answer is going to be, yeah, I would be concerned about your content as well. When you talk about a score in that setting and you talk about your position, I do have a couple people in the program not taking their 7th test, but it's kind of a similar situation because they're on their PAN-RE and they're further out from school and in very specialized areas. And one of the things I said is that I do provide content, but I would probably look for something supplemental. And you probably have that something already, by the way, which is, again, why I don't add in a ton to this, is because I know that people have way too much resources at this point.
Yeah.
And to me, you know, I have a good friend who I talk about a lot of this with, who used to run a PA program and was on the board at the NCCPA and a whole bunch of different things. And one of the things we talk about is that everybody tends to do, and not necessarily what you've done, but they don't pass. And then they say, well, I'm going to go get the next course and that'll fix it. And then go get the next course and that'll fix it. Well, I'll go get the next. And that's hard, because what else do you do? Right. There's nothing, you don't know what else to do. So you're looking for that magic bullet. What I can tell you is that what we do here is completely different and puts you in a position to do your absolute best. You have that content available to you already, and the content that I provide to you. So yes, I would be more worried in your case than I am. And for a lot of people, that content is going to be your issue. So you're going to have to do that also. But we're going to provide, I can provide you with a framework to go through that and a structure to get through that material and explain to you. You're going to adjust your schedule a little bit because you're not going to be taking it, let's say, in October, but I go through how to adjust your schedule and what to do in that meantime. Like I've had a bunch of people do over the time period. So yes, content's going to be your issue, but I think we can solve that as well. I think that's going to be, like I said, I'm going to help you set up the structure, help you get through the framework. You're going to have to put in the work and go through the stuff, the content material to absolutely to get it. Right. But then on top of that, with what we do, I think it's going to put you in the best position to have a shot at getting through this one. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. My question was already answered, but if you had it coming up in November as well, because I plan to take it at the end of November, give myself the maximum time to study. But okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to do one in November. Nope. I thought about it, but it's just going to be too much for me personally. So I'm not going to be able to get to it.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Okay. Is there an online, you asked about if there's an online website. Yes, you can absolutely view all the Learnistic stuff online. The developer calls it a beta version. He doesn't want me to share it so much. I'm good friends with him. There is access to it through that website. You log in just using your credentials. I have found no issues with it. I don't know why he wants to call it a beta version and not put it out there. I absolutely love the desktop version. I think it's great. It's easy to jump around and search for things in. I don't often use it because I like to use stuff on the go on my phone. But if you're home and like a bigger screen, then absolutely that's available. You also asked me a really tough question. I like it. That's really, really good. I want to just skip it, but I really like it. So she asked, why do you think that students who don't pass after your program didn't pass? What do you think their struggle is there? I think there's a couple of things, and I have to tread a little lightly here. I think that one is going to be content. I think some people come in and they are short on content. I think that is a struggle for some people. I think it's a minority of people, but I do think that it is real. I think most programs do an outstanding job of getting you ready for this test. That's their entire goal for 2 to 3 years. And I think they do a really good job of that. I think some people aren't far enough along there as they would like to be, or as they think they are. I also think that some people this is where I need to tread lightly, don't implement the things that I asked them to do as well as I asked them to do them. You heard Lauren say, and you've heard other people say, some of the things felt like you could just blow them off, or they weren't that important, or they were kind of silly, or this or that. And I think you run up against that, especially over 33 days. 33 days is a long time. It doesn't seem that long, but it's a long time. So I think people are very excited on day 2 and day 3. And by 15 or day 20 of me asking them to do things, they are sort of like, something else happened. My cat got sick. My mom is sick. I had to go help my brother move. Things happen. I also find that that's a big problem with people in general when they go to take the PANCE, whether it's the first time or the fourth time, that a lot of people will say, I was studying, but then this happened. I was studying, and then I had, I have a couple of people who, are getting married, having a baby, moving out of their apartments. These are tremendous life events. Finding a new job, tremendous life events, like top 3 or 4 most stressful things in your life. We all try to cram into this little 4-month period, and then wonder why it doesn't go exactly how we had planned. And some people will push their preparation for the PANCE, even if it's their 3rd or 4th time, aside a little bit, and they will not really go after it in the way that I would hope that they would. again, I'm not going to put the whole thing on everybody else. Certainly there are shortcomings in what I produce. I'm producing a lot of stuff towards, like I said, providing you with that toolbook, getting you in the best position to take your test, making it so that you are ready and 100% ready to go and on board for that day. Honestly, not everyone's going to get there, even if they do what I ask. Because what I ask is what I think is what's worked for me and what's worked for a lot of people. It's not going to mesh with everybody. It just isn't going to happen. It pains me for when that happens because I want it to work for everybody, but it's just not going to be the case. Most of the people I've heard back from have done really well. In fact, in the June cohort, I have the average increase in scores from the June cohort. And this is not people have taken it for the first time because they don't have anything to compare to, but the average increase in the June cohort is 67 points, which is a big number. I've had people close to 200. I've had people go down a little bit. Like Lauren said, a lot of people, when they retake this thing for the second time, get very close to the same score or go down a little bit. That's not uncommon at all. So the fact that I've had that many people do that well is very encouraging to me. But like I said, have I had people who wish they had done a little better after going through it? Absolutely. And that's just the way that's going to go. So I do look at that, and I have interviewed a couple of those people as well to try to figure out how to make things a little better, what we could have worked on, what we could have missed, how to help move them forward. Like I said, I do not offer a guarantee on this program because I think that's just silly. I can't guarantee that you're going to do the work. I can't guarantee that you're going to pass. But I've been at physician assistant exam review for 11 years now. You know my email address. You know how to find me. I've had conversations with maybe not everyone who's failed because they haven't all reached out, despite my reaching out to everyone in the program several times after it. But I'm not going anywhere. So if you have questions, concerns, thoughts afterwards, I've certainly worked through and had some private coaching sessions with those people afterwards about what we could work on, what they could work on. So that's my sort of long, vague answer to your very, very difficult question. All right. Lauren asks a very long question. Oh, there you go. She answers a long question. That's much better for me. Thank you.
Yeah, they just asked how I did like my questions, and I definitely did a lot. Well, I used to do a lot in test mode, and I would just, run through the questions. This time around, I definitely did a lot more tutor mode questions. I mean, I did about 60 every day in tutor mode and then 60 in testing mode. But in the tutor mode, you can really look at the question, read it slowly, pick up on the little hints that they're trying to give you in every question because they're trying to lead you somewhere. And then really looking at the answer choices and the ones that make no sense, throw those out immediately. And then you're down to 2 or 3. So then you can really kind of just narrow it down to the answer. And so I think the tutor mode really helps, but timing was a big issue for me as well. So I really wanted to make sure I was good on my timing. And so, I was close still, I still had about maybe 5 to 2 minutes left at the end of each section for the PANCE. But, just really reading the question thoroughly and then looking at the answers, the information, and that's what you have to keep telling yourself. So that's what I did. And I do want to make a point that I thought UWorld was the best for question banks. I've done them all. I did Roche Review, I did PA Easy, and then UWorld. So I've done them all. And I think that was the most, they're definitely hard, but I think they'll get you the most prepared.
Yeah. So 2 things just to add to that real quick, not about the program necessarily, but that's definitely what I've heard about UWorld is the overall people seem to be very happy with that. I like the fact that it mimics the PANCE exactly. The screen format is the exact same format, which I think is surprisingly really helpful. So that's one of the reasons I kind of really, really like it. But I heard that about the questions. They are definitely a little bit harder than PANCE questions, and they do that on purpose. A lot of the different companies do that. I know I used Exam Master before, and I actually reached out to them because I was like, wow, these are really hard. And their response was, yes, we totally make them way harder than they need to be. And from what I understand, UWorld does the same thing. So to me, you don't want to be getting 50s on it, but 65, 70s are good scores. You're not going to be getting hundreds on those and expecting to. That's just not going to happen. One of the other things we talk about, you mentioned, Lauren, in the program, is looking for those, what I like to call breadcrumbs. They have to lead you somewhere, right? The goal of the test writer is to lead you to an answer. It's not to trick you out of an answer. So I'm a huge fan of doing as many questions as possible. It's the best way for me, it's the best way that I study. Someone was asking last night, how many questions do you recommend people do per day? It's different for everybody. Some people get stressed out. Some people don't love it. Some people really like it. For me, I learn best when I'm answering questions because there's that active part going on, where if I'm just reading, I retain almost nothing. It's not really helpful for me. So I do tons and tons of questions, but there are different ways that I do questions. Like I just mentioned, there are questions you do to learn content. And then there are questions you do to learn test taking skills, and to go through those in a different manner. One is to practice your skills, and one is to practice your content. So it also depends on which way you're approaching those questions. But I do agree, from what I've heard, I personally haven't used it, but UWorld definitely gets the most recommendations out of anything that I've seen over the past 6 months to a year.
Yeah, studying for me was definitely doing the test questions. Like, you can only read PANCE Prep Pearl so many times. So doing the test questions and reading the explanations, writing them down, making note cards out of them, whatever you have to do, but definitely test questions, I think, is the best approach. A lot of test questions.
All right. What else before we wrap this up for tonight? Nothing. That's it. Marianne's been awfully quiet. Nothing. All right. All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to call it a night then. We'll let Lauren go. I appreciate you showing up. Thank you so much for doing this. I do really appreciate it. Like I said, I think providing a previous student is a much better opportunity for people than just listening to me ramble on about it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there she is.
I'm making dinner, so that's
that's fine. No. I don't mean to pick on you. I was just, if you had any questions before we went, I didn't want to make you feel like you were left out.
No. Like, they answered my question because I did the PANCE and I failed it the first time. So I actually spoke to Morgan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she was.
Morgan's another one who did fantastic. She did great.
Yeah. So she told me about this because she was in my cohort. So.
All right, great.
I am. So yeah, I just registered right now, actually.
Oh, welcome aboard then. That was easy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Morgan did fantastic. She wound up doing really, really well. I was super excited for her. And then she went to Paris or France right afterwards.
Yes, she did. She went to France. Yes.
Yeah, which was really cool. And I told her I got to figure out a way to come visit her there so that I can write it off as a business expense and bring my family. They would totally love that. But
she's back now.
I know. So if that's it, nobody else has any questions, we're going to wrap it up. And again, thank you, Lauren, so much for joining us tonight, and congratulations. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. I'm so excited too.
All right, everybody. Good night. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.